Hi crafty friends, welcome back to my channel. I am sneaking in the nick of time to share my January one little word pages with you. This is actually my first year really making the album. I've bought the supplies for 2 years in a row. I've signed up for the class for 2 years in a row, and I've never actually made an album. So this is the first year that I'm hoping to get all 12 prompts in an album. So here is what my one little board box looks like. I have, again, the kits from the last 2 years. I did not buy anything this year except these cork months of the years because I haven't used anything from the last two kits and it just did not make sense to purchase anything new. Also, I went through my stash of Felicity Jane papers. I pulled out some papers that I thought would be fun and cut them down to 6x8. I also cut some paper, the same papers down to 4x6, so those are ready size. I pulled out some 3x4 cards that are like florals that are working with the color scheme that I've chosen. I've grabbed a few like alphabet stickers. These tiny chipboard hearts I think would be fun to play with, and then I have these hearts from the Gina collection, and then everything else is just stuff from One Little Word from 2019 and 2018. I know it's definitely 2019. I think it's 2018 is the kit that I have in here. I've went through my embellishments and that go in there. I've gone through my embellishments and I've sorted them all. Like, I love these divided containers for sorting embellishments. I've gone through my embellishments and sorted them all in here. They're kind of escaping and doing crazy things already, but for the most part, they're sorted. And so what I did to prepare for this is I went ahead and I used the digitals to fill out my cards. So I am going to go ahead and cut these up and voice over the rest of this, because to keep things, I don't want to say interesting, but to keep things interesting, I'm going to add a few things to kind of jazz up these pockets because I can't handle just the white space in the words. So I have a few ideas to play with some product that I have, and I think it'll be fun. So I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to get to work. Hi crafty friends, I am so excited to share with you what I made for this month's prompt. So there will be plenty of time for chit-chatting later. I'm going to talk to you about the process now, and then when there's like downtime or when I'm doing things that I really don't need to explain, I think I can fill you in on my intentions for the year. I actually have my prompts right next to me, so I'm definitely going to be reading to you bits and pieces of what I wrote as far as what I want my goals and intentions for open to be. But for now, we are playing with color, and as part of being open to new things and to change, I am trying new techniques in my scrapbooking and my making this year. And I saw this really fun thing where someone took a brayer and used it with distress oxides. Now, I've used a brayer with like jelly plating and with acrylic paints, but I've never used it with this particular medium. And the person that I saw do this, she literally just rolled the brayer in the inks and then rolled it directly on her paper. Now, she was a little bit braver than I was, and she used a mix of contrasting and complementary colors, and I just chose to stay in a family. So I have some pinks, yellows, and oranges, and like corally colors. And you'll see that the reason I'm going through all this work of making this background is because I'm going to make my make some flowers for my layout. So the colors I'm using are Tattered Rose, Fossilized Amber, Spiced Marmalade, Ripe Persimmon, and Worn Lipstick. And you'll see that they layer over each other really nicely. When I was watching the video for the person who did this technique, she recommended that you start with the lightest color and then you add darker colors on top of it. She also recommended that when using the darker color, you roll off some of the color onto your like scratch pad first, which is why you see I have that paper towel down on the desk, and I'm working on a craft sheet just so I don't get a mess everywhere. But guys, look at how that color layers. It's just beautiful. You have that light pink all the way in the background, and then the yellow and the orange and the coral, and then the darker pink on top of it. And then I went in again with a little bit of tattered rose to kind of try to fill in the gaps because I didn't want there to be much white space on the page. Also, I figured it'd be easier to fill in the gaps with the lightest color versus the darkest color because it saved the whole like background from becoming overwhelmed by the darker color. And I actually only end up using one of these panels, but I made two because I knew I would make a mistake. And you guys, guess what? I was right. I ended up ruining one of these, but on the bright side, I had a backup. So I pulled out this stamp set from Altenew. It's called the Adore You stamp, and I have the coordinating die for it. And my thought process was to use the stamps first of all, florals are my favorite shape. If you've watched me scrapbook before, you already know this. You know that I'm a sucker for a good floral. Florals are my favorite shape to include in my making. But I thought it would be fun, since I showed you the kit that I made and the color scheme that I was kind of leaning towards, to do some sort of creative play. Because I didn't want this album to just, well, at least the January prompts, to just be words. I thought it'd be fun to include some shape and some texture and some color because this is my album and I'm all about bright colors and florals and fun shapes. And so I pulled out literally every floral on that stamp set. And there are a dozen florals of multiple sizes on that stamp set. There are also some leaves and some sentiments. I highly recommend this stamp set if you are looking for a floral just to add to your stash. It is a really good one. Now let me tell you what I did wrong so you don't have to do it. And through the magic of editing, you don't have to watch me do the wrong things. But I will tell you that I ended up cropping out a half hour of me ruining this. So the first thing I did wrong was I didn't prime my stamps. So I know I say this all the time. You guys, if you're using a brand new stamp set, please go ahead and prime your stamps. Second thing I did wrong was use ink that was like super dried up and not saturated anymore. So I was trying to use my Ranger archival ink because I didn't know if I wanted to add some water to these florals in the background. And so I wanted to use the Ranger archival ink just in case. And my Ranger ink is dead. It's dried up. It's dead. So you see, like in the right corner now, you see the one I ruined by fighting with the Ranger archival inks because I kept stamping on it over and over and it smudged and smeared and then, yeah, it was a disaster. So I ended up switching to my Versafine ink, which is, number one, it's designed for stamping really fine images, which is what these flowers are. So I probably should have used it in the beginning, but I did not remember that I had Versafine. And Joshua, actually, the saint that he is, I love crafting with him next to me. He was like, Tashi, don't you have another ink you could use? And I was like, you're right. I do have another ink I could use. And by the time I switched to Versafine, it literally saved my life. And I got this great panel of flowers. Now, would it have been awesome to have two panels instead of one? Yes, but I made it work with just the one because I didn't want to do the coloring all over again. And so what I did was I just used some washi to tape down the dies to my card panel, and then I ran it through my Big Shot. Now this is just a regular Big Shot. It's the vintage one, and I just got it because I liked the coloring. I didn't want like a generic white and gray machine. So this one is very like distressed looking, but it's just your normal Sizzix Big Shot. There's nothing special about it besides the coloring of it. And so now that you see that I'm popping out those flowers, aren't they stunning? Like, I love them so much. They came out so good. They did exactly what I wanted them to do. And again, if I could have like repeated that, I would have not made the mistake the first time. And then I would have gotten two panels of flowers instead of just the one. But after including this in my album, I honestly think I'm going to do this every month, just do a different color scheme and have that be like the theme that ties my album together. I think that might be really fun. So now I'm making leaves. And I started with old paper, and then I added some peeled paint, some mowed lawn, and some pine needles. And I just went in and pulled out different greens and different tones, same thing. So I'm layering those greens with the brayer to create some contrast and some depth in the background. I am not very good at watercolor, but I think that doing this and then stamping on top of it and die cutting those stamp shapes out, it kind of gives you the illusion of watercolor. It's like cheating. Like, I feel like I cheated and I won because these came out so good. I feel like I've said that like 100 times, but you guys, wait till you see the way these leaves come out. And here, when I put down these pine needles, I was like, oh no, that is really dark. What am I going to do? And then I just went in with old paper and then blended it in and lightened it up. And the good thing about Distress Oxides is the inks layer on top of each other without like mushing and blending into each other, if that makes any sense. So just by going in and adding some more lighter greens on top of that pine needles, it like mellowed it out and helped it all melt together and lighten up really nicely. And then I just do the same thing. I take it into my Misti. I stamp it down. Like, I take all 7 leaves. So there are 7 leaves in the stamp set. So I pull out the 7 leaves. I stamp them down. I take them into my die cutting machine, cut them out. And now I have a dozen flowers and 7 leaves to play with on my, for my project. So I think right about now, a lot of it just becomes like really easy to like watch. If I see something else happen on the screen that I kind of want to explain what I was doing or what I was thinking, I'll pick back up. But I kind of want to talk to you about what I wrote as far as the prompts go. For my note to self and the reason why prompt, they literally came right out of my December daily day 14 entry. If you haven't seen that video, I will link it in the description box. But every year in my December daily, I write a letter to my one little word. So you'll see that the big photo, I can't remember if I showed you the big photo or not, but the big photo that I'm using in this album is this photo that I use in December Daily on day 14. Because I like including a letter to my one little word, I also like having a phrase related to my one little word on my letterboard in our apartment. So I had taken that picture with my letterboard and it was just perfect. So instead of like trying to recreate a new picture, I love that one so much that it just automatically went in the, album. So right here, I am looking for a quote because I'm going to do some stamping. So I'm grabbing all my supplies and I am going to get to work. So the first thing I do as far as putting the cards in my album is I first start with the card where you actually the card where you state your word. And I use those puffy alphas that I showed you in my stash to spell out the word open. And I didn't want to try handwriting it, and I also didn't want to type it. Like, I wanted something a little bit more interesting, so I just use the stickers to spell out the word open, and then I start putting things into my pockets. And I hope this process doesn't give you whiplash, but I go back and forth a lot in this one. Like, I start doing one thing and then I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to do that one just yet. And then I go do another thing, and then I go back to doing the one thing that I was already doing. And this was 100% creative play for me. A little bit of it was frustrating when I like screwed up the stamping, and then, I didn't tell you, I dropped all the dies on the floor, and so there were 12 tiny dies all over the floor, and then I had a meltdown, and my husband had to like get down on his knees and help me find the dies, and there was definitely some stressful moments going on, but for the most part, this was creative play, and I had a great time. So yes, I went back and forth a lot filling in this entry, and I love it so much. So here I stuck down the cork title to the outside of my pocket. I was worried that by putting it on, if I put it on the inside of the pocket, it would buckle. So I just stuck it down to the outside, and then I added the tiniest flower to just add some more florals, and I put it on a Felicity Jane card. I showed you that I had pulled out some stuff from Felicity Jane to add from my kit, and I ended up using a few of those cards and papers actually in this January entry. I thought about adding some distressing to my cards, but then I was wondering that it would be a little too opaque and that you wouldn't be able to see the words, so I just chose to leave it alone. So the photo, that 4x6 photo that I'm now embellishing, that photo I shared on Instagram on the 1st of January when I was saying what my one little word for 2020 is. And so it's a photo of me holding onto my heart talisman that says my word. I purchased one of these heart talismans on Etsy. I know Soul Mantra sells them. If you don't have one already, I highly recommend having a physical representation of your word to carry with you. I keep mine in my pocket, and whenever I just want to like hold on to it, I grab it, I hold it, it stays next to me pretty much all the time. I love that little thing. And so I just figured I'd add that photo because it's me holding on to my word. And now I'm adding some of those florals that I made. So you guys, look at how beautiful those florals and those leaves look together. I'm like obsessed. And then I add a bit of cork to finish this off, just to repeat that texture. Now, raise your hand if you were surprised that I pulled out that stamp set, because I'm sure all of you who've watched me make anything ever expected at some point this stamp set to come out in my One Little Word album. And if you expected it to come out, you were correct. So points to you. I intentionally stamped it with my dry archival ink, even though I knew that it was dry, because I thought it would give like a skipped kind of distressed texture to it versus stamping it with like my Versafine, which was like super saturated. I kind of wanted it to look messy. And so I stamped out, so I closed my eyes to old ends and opened my heart to new beginnings. And I'm stamping it in reverse because I wanted it to be all the way at the bottom and flush to the left. And if I started it at the top, there's no way I would have been able to tell exactly how to space this out. So I am just stamping and working my way up. I had found it on Pinterest spaced exactly the way I wanted it to, and so I'm literally just following along with the, that's why you see my phone there. I'm following along with what's on my screen, and I love how distressed and old this stamping looks, and this is actually going to go on the back side of my photo. It is one of the introductory pages to my album. I don't know if it's, I went back and forth if I wanted this to be my quote or the quote by Morgan Harper Nichols that I did choose. May you keep your heart open to what unexpected beautiful things might bloom here. I went back and forth for days, and then I was just like, why not include both? So since I stamped the Morgan Harper Nichols quote really big in my December Daily album, I chose to put that on the card and stamp this one. So now I'm working on my title page, and I grabbed a piece of acetate, cut it down to 6 3/4 by 8 1/4, which is pretty much the size of the page protector, and I'm working on those butterflies. Now, I said in my intro that I didn't buy anything this year except those cork those cork months. So if you have this, or if you used the kit last year and you're looking for inspiration for this year, I'm sure you could recreate this with the hearts and all the themes in this year. But I really wanted to, I talked a lot in my journaling about like blooming and about like breaking out of a chrysalis. So it just felt kind of perfect that I had all those butterflies, because, you know, the caterpillar, he goes in the chrysalis, he molts, he becomes something new, and it changes. And then the chrysalis bursts open and something like beautiful and profound comes out. And so I was really glad that I actually had those butterflies to document. So I just stapled them down to my transparency, and I'm gluing the Make It Visible down with a little bit of tape runner. And again, I'm going to try to go back to what I've been journaling about, because I'm trying to talk to you about what I'm doing just so you can follow along, because I had to edit a lot out of this. The raw footage for this video was 2 hours long, like literally 2 hours. So I had to edit a lot of it so you weren't watching me play for 2 hours. So I keep trying to come back to tell you what I'm doing and then hoping that you can follow along. So I'm just making a cluster. I'm going to tell you what I wrote. So as far as letting go, I wrote, this year I want to let go of fear, crippling fear that has prevented me from opening doors that I know are meant for me, that prevented me from knocking on closed ones, from opening my heart to people, fear that paralyzed me and sat around my neck like an anchor, like an albatross. This fear has told me that a closed life was a safe life, and that fences prevented me from being hurt, but fear is a liar, and it is time for this girl to be a little less afraid and a lot braver. And honestly, I have been paralyzed by fear for more of my life than I can count, and I am so ready to just let go of all of that. I mean, I don't expect it to happen overnight. Like, we don't retrain our brain and become these like new and magical, profound creatures by just blinking, but I am ready to do the work and hope that by doing the work, something amazing happens. So again, back to the process. I'm pulling out the larger florals and creating a cluster in the white space on top of my stamped image. And that's why I stamped it the way I did, because I wanted to make sure that there would be space on top to add a bunch of those florals. And then I wanted to leave space so I could kind of do them like falling down the page. So I make the big cluster on the top with the leaves, and then I add 2 smaller flowers falling down. So again, we're going to go back and forth between the process and what I wrote. As far as inviting, I wrote, this year I want to invite even deeper connections. I want to invite new experiences, whether they be tangible or emotional or spiritual, growth on a scale I've never seen before, and profound change. I have worked so hard to get to where I am right now, on the cusp of something new and great, and being open to what is ahead, what is looming over this horizon will literally be life-changing. I think I just realized I spelled life wrong. Wow. I want to invite a new career, expansion in my memory keeping and the business that can come out of that, and friendships and relationships that will rival any of the ones behind me. And you guys, if you understood how passionate I am about living a more open life this year, like I literally, rereading this, I have chills because I am so ready to just do this work. Now, it's January. Talk to me again in April and May when I have been trying to do this for a few months and nothing's been working, and we'll see how committed I am. But right now, I am just ready to do the thing. Like, I want to do the thing. I want to reap all these rewards. And yes, I am afraid, because I know that when you open up, you're opening up to bad things too. It's not like you open up and only good things find you. Sometimes bad things have a way of finding good people. But, and the only way you'll find what's on the other side is if you take like that leap of faith. So I'm so ready. Okay, so back to the process. What I did was I backed my photo and my stamped card. I used my power punch to punch holes. I took a picture of it because I was obsessed, and like I instantly wanted to share it on Instagram. Like I was like, they cannot wait to see the final thing. I must share it now. So I took that picture, and now I am just going back to working on my cards. I go back and forth between what cards I want to use from Felicity Jane, and I end up grabbing that floral because I have the floral on the my heart talisman, and then I grabbed that heart because I really wanted to repeat the heart shape, and I went back and forth about this heart thing, and I picked up some cork, and then I put the heart back, and then I picked up the heart again. You'll see that eventually we end up back to the heart. As far as my reason why and my notes to self, that journaling is straight out of my December daily video. I literally copied and pasted paragraphs from that letter, so I'm not going to go ahead and reread that, because if you've seen that video or you've read my journaling, again, it's copied and pasted verbatim from that process. But as far as a year ahead, I wrote, in terms of in what ways is my word already a part of my life, I wrote, I think I practice being open on a regular basis, and more so now that I am making an effort to share more and be more vulnerable in my memory keeping at my art. However, that kind of vulnerability is easy and doesn't require much work or thinking on my part. I know how to do that. I know how to write and how to share my writing. I know how to talk to strangers and how to open up about what brings me joy. That is something I have always known how to do and something I am very grateful for. It's the extrovert in me. And there are days that I'm very grateful that I am an extrovert and I am outwardly focused, because it makes it very easy to meet people. And it makes it very easy to kind of build community. And there are also other days where I'm just like, oh, Tashiana, take it down a notch. Like, you can be a lot sometimes. But there's that way, open is very much already a part of my life. And so I'm working on deepening that because, it's already there. I don't need to make it or force it there. I'm just working on deepening it. Okay. So let's switch gears and go back to the process for a little bit. I pulled out those black circles. Now, those were either from the 2018 or the 2019 kits. And Allie did something similar in December Daily where she had the circles. Oh, I did not even realize Noah FaceTimed me. I forgot to edit out Noah FaceTiming. But yes, Noah FaceTimed me while I was working on this. So you got to see a little peek of my Munchkin's chubby cheeks. I love him so much. So yes, I'm talking to Noah while I'm making this. And the fact that I still got it done, I was very committed to getting this page done. But Allie did something similar where she had the circles interacting with the edges of of her card, and I did that and then just trimmed it down and added some more flowers. And I love the black and the white with the pop of the color from those die cut flowers. I think it all looks so pretty. It has that like fun graphic nature with also the softness of having those warm colors. And then I added some more of those flowers so they're like kind of cascading around, and you'll just see me sticking things down at this point. All I'm doing is sticking things down and putting things in the pocket. So as far as my intentions for my one little word, this is where I struggled the most, because it was really hard for me to come up with like real actionable steps. I think it's easy to say, I want to live a more open life. I want to walk around more open-hearted. I want to walk around with arms wide open. But what does that look like? And how do you actually do it? Like, what are some steps you can take to help you live a more open life and like actually do the things you say you want to do? So as far as like, so let's, for physical, for example, so I wrote take action, whatever that looks like, and whatever that looks and feels like that day. Walk, lift, train, dance, whatever gets this body moving and keeps me pushing forward towards my goal. So much of what I want out of this year requires me to be in good health, and I have to start honoring the body I'm in if I want it to serve me well. That means more greens and whole foods and water and exercise, less sedentary living and fast snacks. And that is not necessarily related, directly to being open, but it is definitely related to being more present. And so that is what I did as far as my intentions. Like, I wrote about how I wanted to have weekly brunch dates with Joshua, and how I wanted to make one creative thing at least a week, and how I wanted to go back to meditating and having a journaling practice. And I will include photos, and I will share photos on my Instagram. So if you definitely want to read more about what I wrote and my intentions for the year, that's definitely going to be a place to do so. But here, all I'm doing is adding down some stickers to spell out "It's okay to grow slow," which is what I forget how Allie called it. I don't know if she called it a group mantra, but that's like pretty much the group thought for the year, and that completes the process. So I'm going to stop talking now, because pretty soon the video is going to switch back to me giving you an overview of what I made. But I hope you enjoyed watching me work in this album, you guys. I had the most fun, and it was so soothing just sitting down and having some creative play and getting my intentions and thoughts aligned for open for this year. So again, I'm going to stop talking because the rest of the video is going to pick up really quickly, and you'll get to see how everything looks in the pocket and hear my final thoughts on this January prompt. Okay, crafty friends, so I am back, and this took a long time and a lot out of me, and I think I've been working on this for about an hour and a half, but you guys, I love it so much. So much. I am so stoked to fill this album with stories about this word, and oh my god. So some of this might look familiar to you if you followed my December daily progress at all. This photo was actually in my December daily album. So again, for my cover, I just wanted like the butterflies exploding with the make it visible. That's it. I was thinking about tinting this, but I left it in the wood, and I love that color, especially since there's cork everywhere. And then I added those flowers that I made. This is probably my favorite page ever. I love the stamping with the flowers and the cork. I have my "It's okay to grow slow." I really wanted to include that in my album somewhere. I'm gonna have the cork on the outside every month. I might have to make more of these flowers throughout the year just to make them a repetitive theme, because they're so beautiful, and I might just have to keep doing that. So we'll see how that goes. I have my intentions, everything else filled out. For some of my journaling, like my reason why and my note to self are directly from my journaling from December daily, that letter to myself that I wrote. But the quote, again, directly from December daily, I wrote that I wanted to let go of fear, and that I wanted to invite deeper connections, new experiences, growth, change, expansion, everything that is part of opening up to something new. And then as far as, I love this, like I love these circles, like I love having these cut circles and how they interact with the flowers and the graphic nature of the, this makes me so happy. Okay, and then as far as the year ahead, Some of the things I wrote for more and less, I wanted more deeper conversations and connections, less surface engagements, more pursuit of what sets me on fire, less saying yes for saying yes's sake, more authenticity, less being what I think other people want me to be. What I fear the most is inadequacy, which definitely stems back to me being a type 3. I fear that I have worked as hard as I have for this to be as far as I go, like just across the board, and that is a scary place to be. But I'm most excited for growth, for change, for unfolding, for unfurling, for blossoming and blooming, for opening up to what is ahead of me, for my relationship with my husband and my family and the crafting community, and for all the ones that are growing around me. Just growth and change and being open. And then for my intentions, I did physical, emotional, spiritual, relationship, and creative. Those are the prompts Ali recommended. And I just made some notes about what I want to do. I think during the voiceover, I might read some of this. So it's kind of weird because this is the continuation of the video and I got to go back and edit everything else and do the voiceover. So I might share a bit more if there's time in the middle of the process. But you guys, I love flipping through this. I think I'm excited for what this album's going to look like when it's done. I am so ready to make this word visible and to see where open takes me. So I hope you guys come back next month to see the vision board and all the prompts that I'll be sharing. Thank you so much for watching, you guys. Have the best day, the absolute best day. And oh, one more thing. If you pick a word, I would love to know what it is in the comments. I know we talked about this a lot in December, but people are still finding their words. So if you have picked a word, I'd love to know what it is in the comments. Until next time, keep it crafty and have the best day. Bye.